Okay, so you know how AI is like the biggest buzzword right now?
It's everywhere you look, that's for sure.
And it seems like every day there's a new headline about AI doing something even more mind-blowing.
Right, like it's moving so fast.
So today we're doing a deep dive on something that I think is especially fascinating. Um, AI trying to decode those super dense medical documents that I think we all kind of dread.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're looking at some new research about AI tackling pathology reports.
Those things are notoriously hard to decipher.
They might as well be written in, like, ancient hieroglyphics, honestly.
It's like a secret language.
Right. So the study that we're diving into today is hot off the presses from the world of medical research, and it's specifically focusing on colorectal cancer pathology reports.
Yeah, it was just published last month, actually, in Frontiers in Medicine. And it's getting a lot of attention because it's looking at whether those large language models, those LLMs you hear so much about, like ChatGPT, can actually accurately answer questions about these reports,
Mm.
which is pretty wild. And they started with something pretty basic. They wanted to see, could the AI handle just common questions about pathology?
Yeah, like the kind of thing you might be too embarrassed to ask your doctor and you end up, like, sheepishly Googling later.
Exactly. Like, what even is a pathological examination?
Exactly.
So to see how the AI stacked up, they fed these questions to ChatGPT, and then they had real-life gastroenterologists rate the AI's answers. And they compared those responses to information from sources you and I might typically turn to, like medical websites.
So, like, is AI going to replace WebMD?
Yeah. Well, hold on. It's not quite that simple. But the really interesting thing is the AI did amazingly well. Doctors rated its answers as being just as understandable and accurate as the information from those human-generated sources.
Yeah.
And get this, in some cases, the AI even scored higher for clarity and satisfaction.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, especially when answering questions about, like, what a pathology report should include and the purpose of pathology in general.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. But those are pretty general questions. Could the AI actually handle the nitty-gritty details of a real pathology report, though?
Right, right. That's the real question. And the researchers didn't stop there, so to find out, they took things a step further.
Mm.
They said, okay, AI, let's see what you've got. We're going to use real pathology reports from 5 different patients diagnosed with colorectal cancer.
Wow, they really threw the AI into the deep end.
They did. No more Pathology 101.
Right.
And they came up with 6 specific questions about each of those reports. And these were designed to be the kind of questions a doctor would ask when reviewing a report. And they wanted to see how the AI's answers measured up against human experts, a gastroenterologist and a pathologist.
Okay, so it's like AI versus humans, the ultimate showdown.
Mhm.
What kind of questions are we talking about here?
Well, they covered a range. They started with like the basics, like what type of tumor is this? But then they went into some more complex territory, like what are the treatment options? And even what's the prognosis for this patient? These were not easy questions.
Talk about a high-stakes exam for the AI. So how did it do? Did it totally choke under pressure?
Here's where it gets really interesting. And this is something that really jumped out at me when I was reading this study. When it came to those big picture conceptual questions, the AI absolutely knocked it out of the park.
Like straight A student, top of the class.
Absolutely. Things like summarizing the type of tumor, explaining the stage of the cancer, and we're talking intricate stuff here, and even interpreting the results of immunohistochemical testing.
Yeah.
Basically all those details that are super crucial for understanding the cancer.
The AI was consistently like nailing those explanations, even better than the human written ones, apparently, at least according to the gastroenterologists. And get this, a group of patients who were asked to rate them too.
And that's a really big deal. It suggests that when it comes to understanding those really complex aspects of a pathology report, AI could be like a total game changer. Imagine getting your pathology report back, and instead of it just being this overwhelming wall of jargon, you have this AI breakdown that translates everything into plain English.
Yeah, it'd be like having a personal medical interpreter, just like on call.
Exactly.
That could be incredibly empowering for patients, especially those who, might not be as comfortable navigating the often very confusing world of medical terminology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just patients who are taking notice. The study also found that the doctors, specifically the gastroenterologists, were really impressed. They found the AI-generated explanations to be very clear, scientifically sound even. They actually rated the AI as being better at explaining the purpose of a pathological examination compared to traditional sources like medical websites, which I thought was fascinating.
Wait, really? So the AI is better at explaining what a pathologist does than some of the information you find on the internet?
I know, right? It's kind of wild when you think about it. It really highlights just how much AI could completely change how we access and understand complex medical information. In the future, instead of us, going down these Google rabbit holes trying to decipher things ourselves, you might be able to just upload your pathology report to, like, a secure site and have AI pull out all the most important details in a way that's both accurate and easy to digest.
Okay, see, that does sound pretty futuristic. I'll admit I was a bit skeptical at first, but this study is like making me a believer. This could really be the future of how we interact with our own health data.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about. And while this study was specifically focused on colorectal cancer pathology reports, the researchers made it clear this is really just the tip of the iceberg. They're already talking about expanding the study to include more patients and different types of cancer.
So potentially, AI could be deciphering all sorts of medical reports in the future. That's amazing. But I'm also curious if the AI was so good at the big picture stuff, what about those more specific practical questions? Like, was it able to give sound medical advice?
Yeah, that's where things get even more interesting, right? It seems like even the brainiest AI has its limits. While the AI excelled at explaining the what of the cancer, it struggled a bit with the so what, like those really nuanced practical questions like, what should I do next? Or what are my treatment options?
Which makes sense. It's one thing to, like, understand a tumor's characteristics from a report, but recommending the best course of treatment for an actual person, considering all of their individual factors, that's a whole other level.
Exactly. The study found that while the AI could accurately summarize those details, like, the type and stage of the cancer from the pathology report, when they asked it more complex questions like, how do I choose adjuvant therapy? It didn't quite hit the mark.
So, for those of us who aren't oncologists, can you break down what adjuvant therapy even means?
Of course, it refers to additional cancer treatment that's given after the primary treatment, often surgery. So it might include things like chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or other therapies. And these decisions are super complex. And doctors have to consider a whole bunch of factors that go way beyond what's in just a single pathology report.
So, it's not just as simple as, like, looking at the report and saying, okay, you need this treatment. There's so much more nuance involved.
Absolutely. It's about weighing potential benefits against risks, considering the patient's overall health, their preferences, and a ton of other factors. It's a very human process, which is probably why the AI wasn't quite ready to step into the oncologist's shoes just yet.
Which is probably a good thing at this point. But even though the AI wasn't a pro at giving specific medical advice, I did think it was fascinating that the patients in the study still found it to be really helpful. They rated the AI's explanations for things like tumor type and stage as being much easier to understand than the human-generated ones.
And that's huge. It really speaks to that incredible potential for AI to really bridge that gap in health literacy. Imagine if you could upload your pathology report to a secure site and get an AI-generated summary that translates all that complicated medical jargon into plain English. That could be incredibly empowering for patients.
Oh, for sure. It'd be like having like a personal translator for your medical records. I mean, think about how intimidating those reports can be, even for people who are like generally okay with medical terminology. It really is. It's like the AI could at least give you a head start on understanding the basics so you're not going into those conversations with your doctor feeling totally lost and overwhelmed.
Precisely. And honestly, even for people who are generally pretty comfortable with medical terms, pathology reports are like next level.
Yeah.
It's like they were designed to make even the calmest person break out in a sweat.
Oh, tell me about it. Okay, so what I'm hearing is the study shows that, yeah, AI might not be ready to like replace doctors anytime soon,
Right.
but it could be a really valuable tool for making those crazy complex medical reports way more accessible to, the average person.
Exactly. And you know what's even more exciting? This is still so early. This is like the very beginning for AI in healthcare.
Yeah.
This research was specifically looking at colorectal cancer. But just imagine the possibilities if they apply this to other types of cancer, other diseases even. We're really just starting to scratch the surface of what AI could do in the world of medicine.
It really is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. What stood out to you as like the most promising aspect of this whole thing?
For me, it's that potential to really empower patients. Knowledge is power. And when you're dealing with something as complex and often scary as a medical diagnosis, having access to clear, understandable information I mean, that can make a world of difference. If AI can help bridge that gap between all that crazy medical jargon and everyday language, it could totally change the game for how patients navigate their own healthcare journeys.
Absolutely. And it's not even just about understanding the diagnosis itself. It's about being able to have more informed conversations with your doctors, ask the right questions, advocate for the best possible care for yourself.
Exactly. It's about leveling the playing field and giving patients the tools they need to be active participants in their own health. And I think this study has given us a really exciting glimpse into a future where AI could make healthcare more transparent, more accessible, and ultimately more patient-centered.
It's a future I'm definitely here for.
Hmm.
And on that note, we're wrapping up our deep dive into AI and the fascinating world of pathology reports. We've explored the science, the potential benefits, even the limitations of this amazing technology.
It's been a really fun conversation, and I think it just highlights how AI is really poised to kind of like reshape the entire healthcare landscape in the years to come.
We hope you found this deep dive informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your biggest takeaways from this research, and what other areas of healthcare do you think AI could revolutionize? Keep those questions swirling, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of cutting edge research.